do a quick video here, and I want to talk about how to deadlift without wrecking your lower back. And this is especially something that I see happening with a lot of men in their 40s, in their 50s, and beyond, who, start to get in trouble when we do things like deadlifting. We get back pain. And one of the biggest reasons why I want to share this video is because I've also seen and heard that a lot of the advice that we tend to get is that we shouldn't lift heavy weights anymore, or we need to avoid certain movements and activities. Shouldn't deadlift anymore. Don't squat, don't run, it's bad for your knees, right? Deadlifting is bad for your back. All of these things, and at least from the way that I think about it, like as I get older, I'm 52. As I get older, I don't want to feel like I have to accept getting weaker, getting sicker, getting fatter, getting like more limited in the things that I can do. I want to be strong. I want to be like athletic. I want to move well. I want good energy. I want to feel good as I get older. And I don't want to have to stop doing the things like lifting weights, building muscle, gaining strength. These things are important, especially as we get older, because if we don't train it, we lose it. And so rather than accepting those things, there are some different things we can do so that we don't have pain when we do things like deadlift. Like, pain is not something that is caused by old age or because deadlifting is bad for us. And almost every time that I've seen it, and I've done this over 23 and a half years, I've had pain all over my body over the years, and I've worked with countless men over 40, over 50 and beyond who had similar issues. And I consistently have found that it's the way that we do things. And if we do them right, or we apply some different tools and kind of look at things from a different perspective and apply these things, that we can lift without pain. So one of the things that I want to talk about today with deadlifting, how to deadlift without wrecking your lower back, and it's doing what I call a tail tuck assessment. The reason why this is so important is because most disc injuries, it's like almost 95-97%, are caused when the discs in the low back get pushed backward and or out to the side. So, doctor might diagnose you with a posterior disc bulge or a posterior lateral disc bulge, right? And so, again, this is really important when we deadlift, because this is a lot of times what happens in deadlifting is that we're getting in positions, especially in the weakest part of the lift, or the part where we're the most vulnerable, which is at the bottom. And so if we don't have good mechanics around our hips and our spine especially, that can lead to problems like back pain, disc bulges, and all these types of things. And then we get told that we shouldn't deadlift anymore, when if we know what's going on, we can correct it. And if we could correct it, then maybe we can lift without pain. So to do the tail tuck assessment, it's just basically getting, in a deadlift position. Now, I'm just finishing a workout here. I would not do an assessment, with 225 on a bar. So, whatever you're going to use, make it very, very light. A dowel, like a wooden dowel, hold it in front of you. If a barbell feels really light to you, you can do it with a barbell. You can do it with an empty trap bar. So just something where it's very, very light. And so we're just really looking to assess the movement. So what we're doing is we're just going through a deadlift, and what you're looking for is the tail tuck. So if you look at right back here at your glutes, where does your tail do a little bit of like a tuck, if you can see that on the camera there. So here on back, there would be a tuck. Sometimes it's obvious, and other times it's really, really subtle. So you either have to be very aware of feeling your body, or if you're not quite sure, do like I'm doing here and record yourself doing, 3 to 5 repetitions. So what you're looking for, if you watch, we just want to watch the glutes there. And as you go through the lift, go, through your normal range of motion, and just try to identify, do you see that tail tuck? And if so, at what point of the movement does it happen? A lot of times what I see that happens with a lot of guys is that they go and they get that tail tuck happens, and they keep going down. So the tail tuck is where your spine, your lower back is starting to round. That's where the disc is in danger of getting pushed backwards. We get disc injuries and all that kind of stuff, back strains and whatnot, because it really puts the spine in a bad position. It puts the muscles in a horrible position. So it's not you have like no stability down there. It's very limited. And so you don't have a whole lot of protection. And it's like it can really stress out, you know, the discs. It could stress out ligaments and whatnot. So, and that's my dog Oliver shaking right here. He's watching me do a video. So anyway, that's what we're looking for. And so what you want to do is you want to spot how far down in that movement you get before that tail tuck happens. And that's your limit of movement. You don't want to move into where that tail tucks, but just stay just above it. And what that might mean for a lot of people is like doing a barbell deadlift might not be the most, the best variation for you. You know, unless, you know, you can get pretty close to full range of motion. You might have to use something like blocks or do, you know, rack pulls, or do like RDLs, or you might have to change up the implement. So like I'm showing here, instead of using a barbell, maybe using a trap bar. And the way that you know is assess yourself with the bar or the dowel, see what you get, and then reassess yourself using something different like a trap bar, and see if how far you move down, if it changes. If you can move further down with a different implement, you've got better range of motion, you've got more stability through that movement, so that might be a better tool to use. So again, the tail tuck assessment, find out what your range or your depth is on the deadlift when your tail tucks and you want to stay just above where that's at. So some other things that we can retest too are the stance, right? How far apart your feet are. You know, I used to deadlift like wide, not like, you know, sumo stance wide. I had done sumo deadlifts for a while too. What I find with those is that for a lot of people, they're safer on the back. They align the SI joints better. They for some people just can stabilize the pelvis better, and so they have more strength and it's a better lift for them. For me, it's always been a weaker lift. Like my body does not like super wide stances. So what I have found is that like I used to do, you know, a little bit wider than shoulder width with my feet, and I always thought that that was the best position for me. Then what I found within like the last 2-3 years is that a more narrow stance, for some reason for me, I can lift a lot more weight, I can move better, and I feel better, and I get like deeper down a lot easier. Like my movement feels smoother and easier to get to with a more narrow stance. So again, you know, everybody's built a little bit different, and so you've got to assess what works best for you. But you can play with the foot position and reassess and see. If you use the same bar or dowel and you change the foot position, what does it look like? Maybe that tail tuck happens earlier in the movement, maybe it doesn't, maybe it happens later, or maybe it doesn't change. But that's something that, that you can use. We can also assess, I talked about depth and speed of movement. Speed of movement's another thing. So sometimes if we're just moving like a little bit faster than our body can properly deal with, so to speak, then we might see some compensations. You might see that tail tuck happen where if you slow the speed down, sometimes like doing a real super slow, so just, you know, like really exaggerate how slow it goes, sometimes you might get even more depth just by slowing things down. So, you know, that's another thing that you can assess and look at. So some kind of quick notes on that too. If you don't get any different assessment and you're limited in either how deep you can go in a deadlift, you can't get that far down, or you get pain no matter what. If there's pain present, you know, you don't want to push through pain. So that's number one. But what that means when you get pain like that, it doesn't mean that something's just bad for you. What it means is that there's an imbalance in the body somewhere, and sometimes we have to look deeper than just at how we perform an exercise. Sometimes there's more than just a foot position, the speed we move, the depth, or the variation we use. Sometimes we're just dealing with something with the brain and nervous system, a higher order system that controls movements and muscles. So for example, I had a good friend of mine who had been dealing with some really bad shoulder pain for a number of years. And he's a bowler, he's in his 50s, he's a drummer. And he was singing like it was so bad that he was having trouble bowling. And he was like, he would go to a gig sometimes and he was having trouble playing drums. He was having trouble holding the sticks at times. Other times he was just in pain during the middle of a gig, or he had such bad anxiety that he would get these tremors. And so you can imagine, you know, if you're a drummer and you get a gig, there's not much of a faster way to kill a career and your passion than to not be able to do the things that, you know, you love to do. So what I did with him, we did all the stretches, we did all the, you know, movement assessments, we did all kinds of mobility stuff. He was even going to physical therapy and getting, you know, all this work done, and nothing was really changing that for him. He wasn't really getting any better. So I went through more of a neurological assessment of his brain and his nervous system. And what we found was that his visual field on the left side wasn't as clear as it was from the middle and the right side. So anytime he was doing movements and everything, because he couldn't see clearly on his left side, his body was forced to compensate in a lot of ways. And so that led to him having limited movement, because your brain doesn't want your body to move when you can't see, right? It's like walking in the dark. You're scared to move, you tighten up, you know, you don't move as fast, you don't move as much, right? So that's kind of what happened. So what we did a couple of drills for his brain and nervous system, and it just unlocked his range of motion. It was a major, major difference. So sometimes we have to look at higher order systems, visual systems, we have to look at vestibular systems or respiratory systems, things like that. So those are some things you could do, but definitely work with the tail tuck assessment. That will tell you immediately, it'll give you a good indicator of where your range should be on a deadlift, and that can help you so that you can learn how to deadlift without wrecking your lower back, especially as we get older. So hopefully that helps, and if you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and until next time, thanks for watching.